Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials live hangout. It is so good to be spending this Monday afternoon with you. Of course, some of you are still in your Sundays and possibly even in your PJs. I want to say a happy Mother's Day to everyone. Of course, here in Brisbane, Australia, we are already into Monday, so that means Mother's Day happened yesterday, but for many of you, you're in the Northern Hemisphere and you're watching right now, so I want to say a special hello to all mums and thanks for joining in. This year was a special Mother's Day for us in the Robinson household because, of course, Jodie, with Jodie's health issues, with the diagnosis of cancer last year, we didn't even know what 2018 would look like. And of course, the news has been wonderful, and so spending Mother's Day with Jodie this year just had a little bit of extra significance for us. But I do want to also acknowledge that there are some people where Mother's Day it can be a time of remembrance and sometimes a bit of grief as well, and so we're thinking of you during this Mother's Day. I hope that you're all ready for an interesting discussion today because we're going to be talking about raspy, husky, rough voices. Is it natural? We're going to talk about that in a few moments. I'm often asked this question, I've got this really husky voice and I've always had it. This is my natural voice. Is it? We'll talk about that coming right up. I just want to, as we get into today, if you're watching this as a replay, because I know most of you watch the show as a replay, you are welcome to participate as well. I'm always keen to see your questions and your comments in the comments section below the video, which I always, as you know, do my best to engage with and to answer your questions. And so if you're watching the replay, this show is as much for you as it is for all of my regulars who are already jumped into the show and have joined in the chat, the live chat. Now, what we are doing today, we are trying something new. As many of you know, we have two moderators in the live chat. Karen from SingWise. She was actually doing her live Q&A this morning. Many of you will have seen that. I saw that Matt was participating in that. But we've also got Linda. Now, Linda is we're going to try something new. I've been aware that the live Q&A, we do the Q&A at the end of every live hangout that we do together, and today's going to be no different. But to try and tidy it up a little bit so that we're not sort of waiting for me to scroll through and find the questions, to keep it a little bit more, moving a little bit more quickly, Linda and I are going to we've got a live Google Doc. It's sitting here ready to go. I can see it to my left. And Linda is going to type in your questions. Now, that doesn't mean I'll get to answer all the questions. Usually I aim to answer 3 or 4 questions every live hangout. So Linda is going to type in the live questions for me. So if you are watching the show live right now, it's time to start. You can type your questions, maybe even put in there for Linda so Linda can easily spot the question, just write question and then colon and then your question, and that way we can answer them. Where possible, try to ask questions about the subject of the day, and that will also be of great interest to everyone. Before we go any further, I just want to see, we do have Karen's here. Now, I wanted to just send a special happy birthday, Karen. Karen from SingWise, it was Karen's birthday last week. Not going to tell you which day, but, and to be honest with you, I don't even know how old you are, Karen, but happy birthday. I hope you had a great day as well as a great Mother's Day, and you are a valuable member here at Voice Essentials, and it's always good to have you participating. Wanted to say that as we got into the rest of the show. Let's do that. Let's get into the rest of the show. Let's talk about this thing called raspy voice.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
So, raspy voice, husky voice, rough voice. is it natural? Are people born with husky voices? To discuss this subject, I think we need to kind of build a couple of parameters around our discussion, and I've written a few things down here that I kind of want to go through. And the question that I wrote, in the subject section of this video was, does your natural voice sound husky, raspy, or rough? Are people born with naturally distorted voices, or does the naturally husky voice suggest an underlying voice pathology? The reason I want to discuss this is because some people do, go through life believing that their husky voice, because they've always seems to have had the husky voice, that's what they were born with. The question I guess one needs to ask, firstly, let's first of all talk about this idea of natural or normal. The World Health Organization, and again I've looked for the actual quote and I can't find it. It really frustrates me that I can't find the quote that I've read in the past. But basically the World Health Organization acknowledged that for the most part, if your vocal condition does not implicate itself negatively upon your everyday living, then that for you constitutes normal, for the want of a better term, healthy voice. So we kind of have to, that's sort of the big broad subject scope, I guess, of this subject. We are not about to say that people who have husky voices are doing anything wrong, in a sense. They're not, we're not looking to ostracize the husky voice. But is it, are people born with husky voices? Well, actually, some people are born with husky voices, but that doesn't mean that is what would refer to as being within normal parameters of so for example, you can be born with vocal health issue. You literally can be born with vocal health issues that can come in utero and can implicate themselves in upon the voice, and therefore the child, the infant, develops with a husky voice. And these are very relatively rare conditions, but they do exist. Even things like hearing and these sorts of issues can implicate themselves on a person's ability to produce clean phonation. And so the other aspects that implicate themselves upon the development of a young person's voice are social factors, the household that a person grows up in, if it's the modeling of a voice production, that, for example, if a young person has two parents in their house that both have a husky, rough production of voice, then voicing is being modeled to the young one, and it's not unusual, or it shouldn't be unexpected that young person would then start to model those vocal aspects, those phonatory aspects. Does that mean that it's natural? Well, that's probably a contentious point. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? What I do know, and in fact I did a little bit of reading before today's live hangout, because I kind of, I wanted to sort of double check the literature. Do you know what? I actually couldn't find anywhere. Now this does not mean it doesn't exist, but in my cursory glance into the literature, I went searching for literature that would tell me that people can naturally have a husky voice, that a human being can be born with a husky voice, and it's not because it's been modeled, it's not because there's any vocal pathology issues with the voice, that person's voice is naturally husky. I couldn't find any. And that does not mean they don't exist, and I will be so thankful if someone can direct me to academic peer-reviewed literature that suggests that yes, a person can be born with a husky voice. So if, let's just, for the, playing the devil's advocate, let's just say you cannot be born with a husky voice, naturally, then that means that there are other things that are playing in on that space. Again, modeling, pathologies, and biological anomalies. Anomalies. I added an A in there. So the other thing that we need to orientate to is we're not talking about distorted voice when we're talking about this subject. Distorted voice, and I've done a video about this in the past. Distorted voice is the terminology that we give to that rock style voice, and there's a whole range of kind of vocal sounds that we can give to the subject of distorted voice. It falls into the rock cavity genre generally, hard rock, metal, screamo, and I've directed people before to Melissa Cross. She's the go-to, the guru around these stylings, and I would encourage you to go and watch her material. And if you're really passionate about those sorts of things, then she's the person that so many internationally respected pedagogues direct people to, is Melissa Cross. So if you're into distorted voice, that's where you want to go. Our subject today is a little bit tighter than that, and because it kind of, when we start to think about, is the voice naturally husky, and when we start to go, actually no, the voice is not naturally husky, then we start to go, okay, well then what is making it husky? Things like smoking will definitely generally leave the voice husky. Asthmatics, people who have had to take asthma drugs, puffers, Ventolin, Seretide, these sorts of long-produced drugs will often lead to a huskiness, and that huskiness will sometimes, with those drugs, come from some bowing and also some damage to the surface of the vocal folds. With asthmatics, we do our best to try to mitigate that, but those drugs ultimately can take a toll, and it can leave that sort of really husky sound. Obviously, general sickness and those sorts of things, but we're talking about more chronic huskiness than acute huskiness. So this chronic huskiness lends itself to things like singing jazz and, other kind of, genre stylings. And it can sound really cool. Like aesthetically, the husky voice can really sound uber cool. The challenge, though, is a habitually husky voice can be the precursor to other vocal health challenges. It can be as a result of nodular swellings. It can be as a result of historical hemorrhage. It can be as a result of a whole range of vocal pathologies, but not only that, it can lead to nodular swellings and hemorrhage potentially. So we have to recognize the high cost of making these sounds, and this is why I, in my studio, try not to allow a singer to camp or create a permissive approach to going, well, my voice has always been husky, therefore it's always going to be husky. And I generally try to lead a singer, towards a clean phonatory pattern so that we learn the skills of making choices to apply husky sound or raspy sound, so that if they're wanting to colour a genre for a song, for a phrase, then they're able to do that, but then they're able to revert back to that clean, habitual, healthy, sustainable tone, which is going to be so much better for them in the long run. Now, this then comes, I want to come right full circle back to the World Health Organization and their view of this idea of, if it's not really negatively impacting or implicating itself on your everyday existence, then it's probably not deemed as being unhealthy. Then it probably is worth saying that if you are not a professional singer, if you're not having to use your voice regularly, now let's get rid of that word professional for a second. Because for example, let's just talk about it being a regular use of your voice. So for example, if we talk about church singers, people who are, contemporary worship model, big stages in front of big groups, and you're doing it regularly. You might be doing 3 or 4 sets on a Sunday. You've got midweek rehearsals, midweek meetings. You're using your voice a lot. So you may not be being paid for it. You're not necessarily professional, but you are using your voice a lot. This is something you're going to have to think about, because your voice, if it's husky, that is going to wear and tear over time. Husky voice, raspy voice is also going to generally lack stamina. Can you hear I'm couching everything I'm saying in words like generally and typically? Because, the challenge of human anatomy is we have a bell curve, right? And you'll always have those individuals who despite I don't, and certainly anecdotally, my thought is that no voice is born husky outside of the parameters we've already talked about. And so huskiness is a learnt process of the voice, but yet we will always be able to identify those exceptions to the rule in the sense that they've learnt to have a husky voice, and yet they go on to have long, sustained careers. We have to acknowledge that those rare individuals do exist. So I'm certainly never wanting to suggest that everything that I say is total. The vast majority of us can employ huskiness, raspiness by choice, and do it in a manner that is stylistically appropriate, that applies the aesthetic that we're looking for when we create sound. And then we need to revert to our clean onsets, our clean, healthy phonatory patterns. And then look, at the other end of the spectrum, there are people who simply, the moment that they go to apply some aesthetic, and these are the minority in the grouping. There are those people who, at the other end of the spectrum, they just can't apply huskiness at all to their sound because the voice just simply won't go there. But I think for the majority of us, we're sort of sitting in that bell curve of the majority. But the majority does not immediately disqualify the minority groups at the other end. So the other thing too that, and I always try to encourage students to develop what I refer to as an ambient sound, so that and it sits somewhere between raspy and husky and breathy, and so you're looking for that So the clean tone is still the central tone, but we're not going, yeah, yeah. It's not, yeah, but it's not, either. Yeah. It's got that ambient kind of tone to it. And that can be a really helpful device, I should say, to apply. Excuse me, you can hear it. The moment I went into that husky, my voice wanted to lock up because I don't use it a lot in the type of singing I would normally do. And so I'm not conditioned to it. But you can condition to being able to use it as a stylistic choice in a really smart manner. And the one thing I just want to finish our focus, and I want to get into some live Q&A. The one thing I would say about it is, if you normally have a clean habitual sound and suddenly you find yourself with a raspy voice that is not repairing, it's not returning to your clean habitual sound, it's time to go to the ENT and have your voice assessed, because that raspiness can be an indicator of some pathology issues that you want to have looked at. Do not leave that unattended. You've got to go and have that looked at. We've spoken many times here on the channel about, have your voice assessed by an ENT whenever you are in doubt. I feel like for the last week I've spent all of my time on comments on the channel telling people to go to an ENT, but nonetheless, you do need to see an ENT if your voice is not returning to its normal, natural state. Look, I hope it's been a helpful discussion today. I can see a whole range of great questions here, which we're going to come back to in a moment. Leave a thumbs up on the video today if that's helpful to learn that the husky voice is not necessarily, I don't think we can call it a natural sound. For the majority of the human race, the voice, its natural setting should be clean phonation, clean balanced phonation, when we don't account for pathologies and anatomical anomalies and these sorts of social implications, modelling. We generally want to see the voice directed to a clean onset with clean oscillatory patterns. Hope that's helpful. Leave a thumbs up, and in a moment we're going to come back to our Q&A. Okay, I'll just double check. We don't have any music going, which is terrific. And so far, so good. This question, Linda has written a whole heap of questions over here for me, and she's got your names there, which is fantastic. I've just seen one from Karen there on screen, and I'm going to read it off screen. You suggest a day of rest between days practicing, but does this depend on how long and how intensely one is practicing? If practices are short, is day off necessary? My recommendation to practice day on, day off is for beginner singers, and as we develop into that, you should always, for professional giggers, and I do this with my tour vocalists, people who are touring, to find 1 day of vocal rest a week. I'm always really keen to maintain that 1 day of vocal rest, which is generally achievable in the programming. And so it really, that's targeted, Karen, at the beginner singer, and as the singer is able to develop more stamina, they're able to do more regularly, but I'm still keen for that 1 day of vocal rest. I think that's really important. Let's go to some other questions here. So it's Sean's N. Sometimes I have a raspy whistle. Is it normal? So the raspy whistle is generally, we would generally see that because of whistle register is a very particular vocal fold, right word escapes me, a very particular vocal fold setup. And it's only half of the vocal folds, and half of the length of them, and it's oscillating at a very thin line. There may be some disturbance in the oscillatory, in the ripple wave of the vocal fold that's giving you a raspiness. And so I would go looking to maybe alter your breath pressure on that, and see if you can play around with looking for that cleaner whistle register. And I think really important with whistle register to get it nice and clean, because the vocal folds are in a very particular posture is the word I was looking for, and you want to keep the edges really balanced as they come together. Gavin has asked a question. G'day, Gavin. Gavin's one of our regulars. Just wondering why can I do vibrato on closed vowels but not with open ones? Does that make sense? When we talk closed vowels, I'd probably have to ask you what you mean by closed vowels, like ah would be open, I think you would be referring to. Is oo a closed vowel? I'd have to determine what the difference there, Gavin. I'm not quite sure. Vibrato is affected by, I sit on the fence when it comes to vibrato as to how it's produced, but it's affected by breath flow. It's also affected by vocal fold posture, and I think we'd have to acknowledge that it's being affected by the acoustics. So your vowel shape is going to affect the way you're able to produce vibrato, and it may well be that your vowels are acoustically impacting on the vocal fold oscillation pattern. If I remember to, Gavin, I'll ask. We've got Kenneth Bozeman on the channel on one of these live hangouts I'm going to say the 30th of July, Monday the 30th of July, because I think that's the right date. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but keep an eye out, Gavin. If I remember, or maybe you can remember to ask that question of Kenneth Bozeman, one of the world's leading experts on acoustic registers, and we're going to talk about that subject during his live hangout. And actually, while I'm talking about our guest speakers, firstly, wasn't Dr. Shannon great last week? In fact, we've had so many great people join us here on the live hangouts. And next week, Monday, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, we have Dr. Matthew Edwards, one of the world's leading, would have to be acknowledged, is acknowledged as one of the world's leading contemporary music vocal pedagogues. He is, in my humble opinion, brilliant. I am really looking forward to hanging out with him and you next week. So come ready, we're armed and ready with your questions, because I think you're going to get a lot out of our discussion with him. And I've got Ashley here. Could you please define a husky voice? So huskiness, Ashley, is basically a disturbance. I went to say a disturbance in the force. It's a disturbance in the airflow that is caused by the vocal folds and the way they are oscillating and posturing, and we get sort of and you can cause that disturbance further up the vocal folds in the way the laryngeal, the pharyngeal, laryngeal pharynx is positioned. We want to be careful with creating it by virtue of tension, because tension is going to make it even higher cost typically, but nonetheless it's going to come from in fact this word is receiving a lot of debate in some of the closed groups that I'm a part of on Facebook by vocal pedagogues. But if we think of a pressed phonation where the vocal folds are coming together quite significantly with a bit of force, and yet we're almost doing a breathy tone on that pressed phonation, it's likely to give that sort of husky sound. Jose Luis Castaneda, my voice is raspy. Will this make me a bad singer? I feel as if my voice has many frequencies. No, Ashley, we are not saying that having a husky voice makes you a bad singer. We are not saying that at all. What we are acknowledging is the limitations that habitual huskiness may well bring to your voice. It's going to bring the limitations are likely to include, again, I'm couching everything because we've got to be really careful here on YouTube. I can't give specific advice to your specific voice, but generally those limitations are going to include things like reduced stamina. So sounds like these, high cost items like these in the voice will tend to fatigue the voice at a higher rate. The fatigue rate a higher fatigue rate tends to lend itself to longer repair rates. So the wear and tear on the voice is higher, so the voice takes longer to recover from use. All voices need to recover from use, but a healthy voice, a sustainable tone, will take shorter amounts of time to recover. And then we then recognize that with higher cost items, if you are living your vocal life in the red, if you're constantly living in credit, then that level of wear and tear can come back to bite you with the development of vocal pathologies, such as, and with husky voice, we'd tend to expect the potential for the development of nodular swellings, but other things can result as well. So I hope, Jose, I hope that answers your question. Got heaps of questions today, and we're going to do one more question, and I just want to say thank you to Linda. Linda, this has worked a treat. So hopefully this has kept us moving at a nice quick rate today. Coming back to Gavin's, before I answer one more question, coming back to Gavin's just qualified with the air vowel. So air is very kind of closed at the back, air, and so there is a light. You were talking about vibrato, weren't you, Gavin? Air, air, air. What we would look for, I would say that there's probably too much tightness on that air vowel, if that's what's happening, Gavin. If you can't get to vibrato, then there's probably too much sort of pharyngeal tightness in the production of that vowel for you. Go looking to open it up a little. Excuse me. One more question. A follow-on question from Jose, and then we'll do our final question. Do I need an operation in order to not have a husky distorted voice? No. It's unlikely that you would need an operation unless it was found that the huskiness was as a result of a pathology issue that is then not responsive to voice therapy. Then vocal surgery may well be indicated. But can you see there's a few things that you've got, a few sort of tick boxes that you've got to go through there before you get to surgery. Surgery should be the end game. It shouldn't. We certainly, unless you're a touring singer and you've got to constantly be on the road, for the majority of the population, we want surgery to be the end game. We want to jump through a number of things before we get to the necessity of surgery. So, Avishek Subadai, I hopefully I've said that name correctly. Is there a way to have a husky voice? Yeah, so it's that pressed phonation. Hey, baby. It's pressed phonation that is slightly breathy. Everyone will be able to produce it slightly differently, and you can play around with it, but you want to be able to do it in a measured way. Don't find yourself doing it in a a regular or a habitual way, because if you do, that is likely to end not well for you, and we don't want you to be doing things that are going to, damage your voice in a crazy kind of way. Well, that has been a really, I've really enjoyed today's discussion. I hope you have. I hope it's been good to be also. Actually, I'll just finish off by letting, some of you have asked whether we can have the live chat, this thing sitting here, just here. Some of you have asked, can we have the live chat as a part of the replays down the side of the video? And just to let you know, because the way I run the videos, at the beginning, many of you see the splash screen where it says, we'll be live in a few minutes. I always try to start that splash screen 5 minutes before going live. And that's just gives everyone an opportunity to come together and get ready so we don't miss anything and you're ready to go. What I then do is in post-edit on YouTube, I then cut that section, I trim that section off so that when people are watching this as a replay, they're not waiting 5 minutes or then searching for that beginning point. I went searching for why does the live replay of the live chat not work? When you use that trim function, for some reason it then doesn't allow you to play the live chat in the replay videos. I don't know why that is. One day, hopefully, YouTube will be able to fix that. But just wanted to give some explanation as to why that live chat is typically is not available. And I think it's more of value to us to come together live and to give you that 5 minutes to get ready, to be ready to go, so that the notifications get sent out and all of that. And then, for the most part, we do tend to put the, I'm pointing the wrong way, put the live Hangout chat up on the screen anyway, so hopefully that covers off on that. I'd like my cake, and I'd like to be able to have my cake and eat it as well. Hopefully YouTube enable us to do both. But there you go. I hope you've enjoyed today. Give the video a thumbs up. If this is the first time you've ever hung out with us, welcome to Voice Essentials. As you can see from the live chat that's been going on, we're a happy, encouraging group here on YouTube. Where are we? We're on YouTube. I do these live hangouts every Monday, but then of course we do the videos. I've got 2 other videos that go live, one on Wednesday morning and one on Friday mornings and Australian Eastern Standard Time. And so 3 videos a week. They're all designed to help you become and realize the full potential of your singing voice, to become the best singer that you can possibly be. And we do that amongst an encouraging, thriving community of singers from across the globe who, just like you, want to raise their voice in song. I really hope to see you again soon. Let me just get rid of this stuff here as we finish up. I really hope to see you again when we hang out next week. Don't forget, Dr. Matthew Edwards is going to be joining us. I know you are going to really enjoy hanging out with him. He is going to bring so much to the channel and so much, and hopefully answer many of your questions when we hang out next week. I look forward to seeing you in 3 days' time, 2 days' time, when the next pre-record video goes live. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.